Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., with negotiations over a possible permanent ceasefire in Gaza top of the agenda. Well, it's the first meeting between the two leaders since they previously met during Trump's first term as U.S. president. It's also the first overseas trip by Netanyahu since the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant against him last year over allegations of war crimes. In Gaza, people are watching the meeting closely in hope that it may finally pave the way toward peace.
Swathes of Gaza laid to waste. A pause in a war that has killed and maimed thousands of women and children is at last bringing much-needed relief. Many have been displaced multiple times, so returning to their homes, even though destroyed and damaged, is a gift they are not taking for granted. Many of them are now looking with anticipation towards what decisions US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu might make.
Today we are rebuilding this house and restoring what remains of it. We stand firm and shall remain in this land. We shall not leave, we will not migrate, and we will not fulfill the occupation's wishes of emptying Gaza and Palestine. We are the owners of this land and will always be. The future is ours. I believe Trump will pressure Netanyahu to end this war and make a decision to bring it to an end.
Trump has multiple plans that he laid the groundwork for during his first term, and he will carry on with them during his second term, namely shaping the Middle East in accordance to the American model.
Netanyahu's visit to Trump is anticipated to reflect his future plans to forcibly displace the Palestinian people and redraw the Middle East. I sincerely hope this plan does not succeed.
8 trucks are now frequently entering Gaza, bringing food, medicines, and essential supplies to the war-torn areas for the first time. A much welcome development for those in need.
And for more, I'd like to welcome Yaki Dayan, a former Israeli consul general in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Top of the agenda for Trump.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Top of the agenda for Trump and Netanyahu will be discussing the next phase of negotiations on the fragile Gaza ceasefire and also, of course, getting the remaining Israeli hostages back. What do you expect to hear from these two leaders?
So I would suggest to listen carefully to the Americans. They are repeating few things. A, they want to complete the hostage deal completely, meaning not only phase 1, but phase 2, making sure that all the hostages are coming back home. The second point that they are keep on repeating is that the Hamas cannot stay in power and Gaza has to be demilitarized. That's the second point. And the third point is that Trump is repeating again and again is that the Gazans can be evicted, can be evacuated from Gaza, at least some of them. And this is the American plan. I would say that strategically there is an agreement between Israel and the Americans. The differences are on the timeline, meaning that Prime Minister Netanyahu would insist that Hamas will not stay in power and will be demilitarized, while I think that the Americans want to see first and foremost the hostage deal being completed. That would be connected immediately to the Saudi plan, the normalization in the Middle East that Trump wants so much. I mean, he deserved a Nobel Prize in his first term for the Abraham Accords, which he didn't receive. So I think this would be a correction, getting the Nobel Prize now. But completing the hostage deal would be a passage to normalizations with Saudi Arabia. And no doubt one more issue, which is a heavy issue, a challenging issue. And I would say that in this issue, there are some differences between the Prime Minister and the President, is Iran and eliminating the military nuclear program of the Iranians.
Now, Egypt and Jordan have rejected a plan by Trump for them to accept displaced Palestinians. Trump insists that he could persuade them because of the significant aid that the U.S. provides to Cairo and Amman. How do you see that playing out?
So if Trump wants that this thing will happen, he has significant leverages. I mean, Egypt is the second foreign aid recipient from the U.S., $1.3 billion a year. And let's not forget that Trump decided to put on hold all the foreign aid to all the countries, putting aside two, Israel and Egypt. And it's not by coincidence because of Egypt's involvement in the hostage deal, mediating the hostage deal. So Trump has significant leverages. We'll see King Abdullah next week in Washington, D.C., and we'll see Assisi coming after him. And this is something that happened already in the Middle East. We saw that after the war in Iraq. A lot of refugees found shelter in many other countries, and same for Syria. And we see what Trump is doing in the U.S. With the refugees over there, with the immigrants over there, Colombia and other countries that were not willing to accept the immigrants eventually succumbed to what Trump decided. Trump comes with a very big stick and has a lot of leverages. So I assume that if he insists here, he fulfilled as well.
And I wanted to ask you this also because Saudi Arabia has joined Egypt and Jordan in rejecting this plan. How much pressure would that then put on prospects of a normalization deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia?
I believe that Saudi Arabia has a lot of interest promoting the normalization with Israel. It's also the connection with the new U.S. administration. And also Israel is a significant player, also countering Iran. I mean, Saudi Arabia and Israel already cooperated, not in an official way, but unofficially. And I think that all the parties involved have a lot of interest promoting that. So no doubt that Saudi Arabia has some objections. Israel has some objections and constraints as well, because you know that Prime Minister Netanyahu has political constraint that he will have to overcome, keeping his coalition on the Saudi deal and agreeing to some wording on a future Palestinian state. So I think that all the parties involved will have to make some concessions, not only Israel, but Saudi Arabia as well. And that might be one of the concessions.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today on DW News. That is Yaki Dayan, former Israeli consul general in Los Angeles.